December 18, 1944. 0730 hours. The fog-shrouded forests near Ericourt, France. A German panzer commander raised his field glasses and smiled. Through the mist, he could see American tank destroyers, thin-skinned, lightly armored vehicles that his 56-ton Tiger tank could obliterate with a single shot. He had faced Shermans before, and these M18s looked even more vulnerable. What he didn't know was that he was about to encounter the fastest tracked vehicle of World War II, a machine that would rewrite every assumption about armored warfare. In the next 72 hours, his Tiger battalion would be systematically destroyed by vehicles the Germans had dismissed as tin cans on tracks. The hunters were about to become the hunted. The confidence of German panzer forces in December 1944 rested on 3 years of armored dominance. The Panzerkampfwagen 6 Tiger I, introduced in 1942, had terrorized Allied armor across North Africa, the Eastern Front, and Western Europe. With frontal armor 100 mm thick and the legendary 88 mm KWK-36L/56 gun, the Tiger could destroy any Allied tank at ranges exceeding 2,000 meters while remaining effectively invulnerable to return fire. Oberst Heinrich Vogel, commanding the 501st Heavy Panzer Battalion attached to the 5th Panzer Army, had studied every American armored vehicle encountered since Normandy. His intelligence reports, compiled from battlefield observations and captured technical manuals, painted a clear picture. American tank destroyers represented a flawed tactical concept, trading armor protection for mobility in vehicles that would be destroyed before they could exploit their speed advantage. The M10 Wolverine, with its 76 mm gun, had proven incapable of penetrating Tiger armor at combat ranges. The M36 Jackson, mounting a 90 mm gun, posed more threat but remained too slow to escape once engaged. Vogel's tactical doctrine, documented in his battalion operations order dated December 10, 1944, reflected absolute confidence: American tank destroyers will be engaged at maximum range. Their inferior armor and firepower render them ineffective against Tiger tanks. Crews are reminded to maintain firing discipline and achieve first-round kills. The German Tactical Manual for Tiger Operations, updated in November 1944 based on Normandy combat experience, dedicated only 3 paragraphs to countering tank destroyers. The doctrine assumed American vehicles would attempt to flank German positions, making them vulnerable to ambush. German crews trained extensively on the shoot-and-stay method, using superior armor to absorb hits while delivering accurate long-range fire. Vogel's battalion had arrived in the Lorraine region on December 5, 1944, as part of preparations for what would become the Ardennes offensive. His command consisted of 42 operational Tiger I tanks, each crewed by veterans averaging 18 months combat experience. These were not the hastily trained replacements plaguing other German units. These were survivors who had faced T-34s on the Eastern Front and Shermans in France. The Tigers deployed to defensive positions covering the approaches to key crossroads near Ericourt. Vogel's defensive scheme followed proven doctrine. Tigers positioned in hold-down positions on elevated terrain, with clear fields of fire extending 1,500 to 2,000 meters. Supporting infantry would screen against close assault. The plan assumed American forces would advance along predictable routes, allowing German gunners to engage at ranges where Tiger superiority was absolute. German intelligence estimates, based on prisoner interrogations and radio intercepts, suggested American armored forces in the sector consisted primarily of M4 Sherman medium tanks and M10 tank destroyers. Neither vehicle posed significant threat in direct engagement. What German intelligence failed to detect was the recent arrival of an entirely new type of American armored vehicle. The 704th Tank Destroyer Battalion had reached the Lorraine front on December 12, 1944, after a rapid deployment from depot facilities at Verdun. The battalion's vehicles were not the familiar M10S or even the newer M36S. These were M18 Hellcats, tank destroyers representing a radical departure from conventional armored warfare philosophy. The M18 Hellcat emerged from a bitter doctrinal debate within the United States Army that had raged since 1941. When German panzers crushed French armor in 1940, American military planners faced a disturbing question: how could American forces counter mass tank attacks without building heavy tanks that contradicted American industrial and logistical capabilities? The Tank Destroyer Force, established in December 1941, proposed a controversial solution. Instead of matching German armor thickness, American tank destroyers would rely on speed, agility, and firepower. The concept required vehicles fast enough to concentrate rapidly against enemy armor breakthroughs, maneuverable enough to achieve favorable firing positions, and armed with guns capable of defeating enemy armor at reasonable combat ranges. The M18's development began in January 1943 at the Buick Motor Division of General Motors. Chief Engineer Oscar Solbert faced seemingly contradictory requirements: maximum speed, adequate firepower, and acceptable armor protection, all within weight limits allowing the vehicle to be transported by existing bridges and transported efficiently. The solution required abandoning conventional tank design principles. The M18's final specifications represented extreme design choices. The vehicle weighed only 17.7 tons, less than one-third the weight of a Tiger tank. The armor thickness ranged from 12.7 mm to 25 mm, sufficient only to stop small arms fire and shell fragments. The open-top turret provided no overhead protection. By conventional standards, the M18 was a death trap. But the M18 possessed capabilities that made it unlike any other tracked combat vehicle in 1944. The Continental R975C4 radial engine, developing 450 horsepower, gave the M18 a power-to-weight ratio of 25.4 horsepower per ton, more than double that of the Tiger. The result was a maximum road speed of 55 miles per hour, making the M18 the fastest tracked armored vehicle of World War II. Cross-country speed exceeded 30 miles per hour on favorable terrain. The armament consisted of a 76mm M1A2 gun, the same weapon that equipped late-model Sherman tanks. While not as powerful as the M36 90mm gun, the 76mm could penetrate 88mm of armor at 1,000 yards using standard M62 armor-piercing ammunition. More importantly, the gun could be brought to bear rapidly thanks to the M18's fast traverse turret, capable of rotating 360 degrees in under 20 seconds. Lieutenant Colonel Edwin Crable, commanding the 704th Tank Destroyer Battalion, had trained his crews on a tactical doctrine that contradicted everything the Germans expected. His operations order, issued December 14, 1944, outlined the shoot and scoot method: engage enemy armor at medium range, achieve quick kills using superior speed to gain advantageous positions, immediately displace before enemy return fire, and never attempt to absorb hits through armor protection. The training had been intensive. Crews practiced rapid displacement drills until they could fire, reverse into defilade, relocate to alternate positions, and re-engage in under 90 seconds. Gunners trained on snap shooting, acquiring and engaging targets with minimal preparation time. Drivers learned to exploit terrain, using speed to reach positions conventional tanks considered inaccessible. The 704th's crews averaged 8 months training on the M18 platform, far more than typical American armored units received. They had studied German tank capabilities extensively. They knew the Tiger's gun could destroy their vehicle with a single hit at any range. They knew their armor would not save them. Their survival depended entirely on not being hit. December 18, 1944. 0815 hours. The fog began lifting across the rolling terrain east of Aircourt. Captain Raymond Foster, commanding Company C, 704th Tank Destroyer Battalion, received radio confirmation that German armor had been spotted moving into positions approximately 3,000 meters to the northeast. His 5 M18s occupied concealed positions in a tree line overlooking open farmland. Through his field glasses, Foster identified the distinctive silhouettes of Tiger tanks, 6 vehicles establishing hull-down positions on a ridgeline. The Germans were following their standard doctrine, using superior range and armor to dominate the battlefield. They clearly expected American forces to advance across the open ground, where German gunners would destroy them at leisure. Foster's tactical problem appeared impossible. His M18s could not penetrate Tiger frontal armor at these ranges. The German position provided clear fields of fire with no covered approach routes. Conventional doctrine suggested waiting for artillery support or attempting a wide flanking movement that would take hours. Foster chose neither option. At 0827 hours, Foster issued movement orders. 3 M18s would advance at maximum speed directly toward the German position, using slight terrain folds to mask their movement as long as possible. 2 M18s would circle north, exploiting a tree-covered draw the Germans appeared to have dismissed as impassable for armored vehicles. The plan required split-second timing and absolute speed. The German response came exactly as Foster predicted. At 0831 hours, as the first 3 M18s broke cover at a distance of 2,400 meters, German gunners engaged immediately. The first 88mm round impacted 60 meters short, throwing up a geyser of frozen earth. The second round passed overhead with a distinctive crack. The Germans were firing at targets moving faster than they had ever encountered. The M18s did not slow down or attempt to return fire. At 55 miles per hour, they raced across open ground that conventional tanks would have approached cautiously. German gunners, trained on engaging slower-moving Shermans and Soviet T-34s, found their range calculations failing against targets closing at unprecedented speed. 5 more rounds missed as the M18s exploited every slight terrain irregularity. At 0834 hours, the range had closed to 800 meters. The lead M18, commanded by Sergeant Donald Critchfield, executed a rapid halt. His gunner, Corporal James Hartwick, had already identified the rightmost Tiger. The M18's gyrostabilizer allowed engagement while the vehicle was still settling. Hartwick fired at 0834:18. The armor-piercing round struck the Tiger's right side hull, where armor thickness decreased to 80 millimeters. The penetration detonated stored ammunition. The Tiger exploded with violence that shocked both German and American observers. German crews had grown accustomed to their vehicles absorbing multiple hits. The sudden destruction of a Tiger by a single shot from a vehicle they considered inferior caused momentary paralysis among the remaining German gunners. Foster's northern flanking element, led by Lieutenant Gordon Andrews, reached firing positions at 0835 hours. From 600 meters range, nearly perpendicular to the German line, Andrews' 2 M18s engaged the exposed flank and rear armor of 3 Tigers. Within 40 seconds, 2 more Tigers were burning. The third Tiger, attempting to traverse its turret to engage the new threat, exposed its side armor to Critchfield's M18. A fourth Tiger died at 0836 hours. The remaining 2 Tigers attempted to retreat, reversing from their positions. But the M18's superior speed allowed them to maintain engagement ranges while circling to achieve favorable angles. At 0839 hours, a 5th Tiger died from a rear shot that penetrated the engine compartment and ignited fuel. The 6th Tiger, commanded by Oberst Vogel himself, managed to traverse and fire at Andrews' M18 at a range of 400 meters. The 88mm round missed by inches, the sonic crack deafening Andrews' crew. Before Vogel could fire again, 3 M18s engaged simultaneously from different positions. At least 2 rounds penetrated. Vogel's Tiger burned like the others. The engagement had lasted 12 minutes. 6 Tigers destroyed. 0 M18 losses. The American tank destroyer crews immediately displaced to alternate positions, expecting German artillery. None came. The Germans were too shocked to coordinate effective response. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. The destruction of Vogel's Tiger platoon sent shockwaves through German command structure that reached 5th Panzer Army headquarters by 1100 hours on December 18. The initial report seemed impossible, 6 Tigers destroyed in 12 minutes by American tank destroyers without inflicting a single loss. General Major Walter Denkert, commanding the 3rd Panzer Grenadier Division, demanded confirmation before forwarding the report to higher command. Confirmation came from multiple sources. Luftwaffe reconnaissance flights photographed 6 burning Tiger Hulks in positions matching Vogel's last reported coordinates. Surviving infantry reported witnessing American vehicles moving at impossible speeds and destroying Tigers with single shots. Radio intercepts revealed American units celebrating a lopsided victory. The reports were accurate, and their implications terrifying. German intelligence officers scrambled to identify the American vehicles involved. Initial assessments suggested a new variant of the M10 tank destroyer, perhaps mounting a more powerful gun. The truth emerged when German patrol units recovered fragments from the battlefield and examined American vehicle tracks in the frozen mud. The track width and ground pressure patterns didn't match any known American armored vehicle. Oberst Friedrich Kuhn, intelligence officer for 89 Corps, compiled the first accurate assessment by December 20, based on prisoner interrogations, recovered technical manuals from a damaged M18, and photographic analysis. Kuhn identified the M18 Hellcat and its capabilities. His report, distributed to all panzer units in the sector, made grim reading for German tank commanders. The M18's specifications contradicted German assumptions about armored warfare. Maximum speed of 55 miles per hour seemed impossible for a tracked vehicle. The power-to-weight ratio exceeded German engineering experience. Most concerning was the tactical implication. German tank destroyers like the Jagdpanther and Ferdinand emphasized heavy armor and powerful guns but sacrificed mobility. The American approach inverted German design philosophy entirely. Kuhn's assessment included tactical recommendations that revealed German concerns. Engage M18 vehicles at maximum possible range before they can exploit superior speed. Do not allow these vehicles to achieve flanking positions. Coordinate multiple tanks to engage single M18s, as their high speed makes accurate fire difficult. Prioritize destruction of M18s over other American armor. The recommendations acknowledged that German tactical doctrine had no effective counter to the M18's speed. December 19 through December 21 saw the 704th Tank Destroyer Battalion operating across a 30-kilometer front, seeking German armor with aggressive patrolling that reversed traditional hunter-prey relationships. The M18s refused to wait for German tanks to attack American positions. Instead, they hunted Tigers and Panthers with tactics that exploited every advantage their design provided. Lieutenant Theodore Waite, commanding Company A's 3rd Platoon, developed what became known as the bait-and-kill technique. A single M18 would deliberately expose itself at long range, appearing vulnerable to German gunners. When Tigers or Panthers moved to engage the exposed vehicle, additional M18s positioned on the flanks would strike from unexpected angles. The speed of the M18 allowed the bait vehicle to escape before German rounds arrived, while the killing vehicles exploited the brief window when German tanks were focused elsewhere. On December 20, Waite's platoon destroyed 4 Panther tanks near Bennestroff using this method. The lead M18, commanded by Staff Sergeant Lawrence Keating, appeared on a road at 1,800 meters range from a German position. 2 Panthers emerged from concealment to engage. Keating's driver, Private George Whitman, accelerated to maximum speed while heading directly toward the Panthers, a move so unconventional it delayed German fire. As the Panthers traversed to track Keating's vehicle, 2 M18s struck from concealed positions 600 meters to the flank. The engagement demonstrated another M18 advantage that German intelligence had not anticipated. The open-top turret, which appeared to be a critical vulnerability, actually provided superior situational awareness. American crews could observe the battlefield without relying solely on vision ports and periscopes. This awareness, combined with the M18's speed, allowed American crews to process tactical situations and respond faster than German crews in fully enclosed vehicles. German tactical responses evolved rapidly but struggled against the M18's capabilities. Panzer commanders attempted to use terrain to reduce engagement ranges, forcing close-quarters combat where the M18's thin armor became a critical liability. This worked occasionally. On December 21, a Tiger ambush at close range destroyed 2 M18s near Morange when the American vehicles rounded a corner into a prepared kill zone at 200 meters. But such successes required perfect conditions and significant luck. The M18's speed meant it could probe suspected ambush positions without commitment, withdrawing faster than German vehicles could pursue. When ambushes were detected, M18s could simply avoid the area and seek alternative routes, while German tanks lacked the mobility to reposition and establish new ambushes quickly. The psychological impact on German panzer crews began manifesting in combat reports by December 22. Tank commanders reported reluctance among drivers to maneuver aggressively, fearing they would expose vulnerable armor to unseen M18s. Gunners struggled with the unprecedented requirement to engage targets moving at highway speeds. The Tigers' traditional advantage, sitting in strong positions and destroying attackers at range, became a liability when attackers could appear from unexpected directions within seconds. Radio intercepts by the Third Army Signal Intelligence Service documented the changing German psychology. December 22, 14:30 hours, request permission to withdraw from forward positions. American fast tank destroyers operating in area. December 23, 08:10 hours, cannot maintain position. Enemy vehicles moving at speeds making engagement impossible. December 23, 16:20 hours, 3 Panthers destroyed by unknown number of enemy tank destroyers. Survivors withdrawing to secondary positions. The 704th Tank Destroyer Battalion's War Diary documented the expanding scope of operations. December 18, 6 Tigers destroyed, 0 friendly losses. December 19, 3 Panthers destroyed, 1 M18 damaged. December 20, 4 Panthers destroyed, 0 losses. December 21, 2 Tigers and 1 Panther destroyed, 2 M18s destroyed. December 22, 5 Panthers destroyed, 1 M18 damaged. December 23, 4 Tigers destroyed, 0 losses. The cumulative effect was devastating to German armored strength. By December 23, the 501st Heavy Panzer Battalion had been reduced from 42 operational Tigers to 11. The 11th Panzer Division's Panther Battalion had lost 31 of 54 tanks. These losses occurred not in massive tank battles but in dozens of small engagements where M18s exploited speed and agility to achieve favorable tactical positions before German crews could respond effectively. The M18 Hellcat's dominance rested on principles of physics that German tank designers had not adequately considered. The relationship between speed, agility, and survivability created tactical advantages that could not be countered by superior armor or firepower alone. American crews were proving that not being hit was more valuable than being able to absorb hits. The Continental R975C4 radial engine, originally designed for aircraft, delivered power characteristics fundamentally different from the Maybach engines powering German tanks. The radial configuration provided immediate throttle response with minimal lag between driver input and vehicle acceleration. This allowed M18 drivers to execute rapid speed changes that disrupted German range calculations and targeting solutions. German gunners trained extensively on the moving target problem, learning to lead targets based on observed speed and range. The standard technique involved estimating target speed, calculating the required lead, and firing when the target appeared in the proper position relative to the gun sight graticule. This worked reliably against targets moving at predictable speeds, 15 to 25 miles per hour for most tanks. The M18 broke these calculations. At 55 miles per hour, the required lead more than doubled. Worse, M18 drivers exploited the vehicle's acceleration to vary speed unpredictably. A target observed moving at 45 miles per hour might accelerate to maximum speed or decelerate to 30 miles per hour within seconds. By the time German gunners adjusted their aim, the M18 had changed speed again. Corporal James Hartwick, gunner on Sergeant Critchfield's M18, described the tactical application in a post-battle interview. "We'd close at maximum speed to get the German gunner rushing his shot. Then our driver would throttle back just as the German fired, making his round pass ahead. While he was reloading, that's about 6 to 8 seconds for a good Tiger crew, we'd fire our shot and immediately accelerate away. By the time his next round was ready, we'd already displaced to a different position." The M18's torsion bar suspension system, designed specifically for high-speed operation, provided stability that allowed accurate fire even while moving at speeds that would render other vehicles' guns ineffective. German tanks used different suspension systems optimized for armor protection and mechanical reliability rather than high-speed stability. Panthers and Tigers could fire accurately while moving at 15 to 20 miles per hour. Beyond that, accuracy degraded severely. Technical testing conducted by the Ordnance Department at Aberdeen Proving Ground in October 1944 had demonstrated the M18's capabilities. At speeds up to 25 miles per hour, the M18 could achieve first-round hit probabilities of 60% against stationary targets at 800 yards. This compared favorably to Sherman tanks, which achieved similar accuracy only from stationary positions. The implications were revolutionary. The M18 could engage effectively while moving at speeds where German tanks couldn't return accurate fire. The tactical geometry of tank combat changed fundamentally when one side possessed superior speed. Traditional doctrine assumed relatively equal mobility, meaning advantageous positions once achieved could be held against enemy maneuver. The M18 invalidated this assumption. German tanks positioned to cover specific approaches found M18s appearing from directions considered impassable or too distant to threaten before defenders could reposition. On December 24, this dynamic played out dramatically during the defense of Saarbrücken. A German counterattack by elements of the 17th SS Panzergrenadier Division included 8 Tiger tanks advancing along a valley road that offered the only suitable route for heavy armor. American infantry positions appeared vulnerable, with anti-tank guns unable to penetrate Tiger frontal armor at the ranges available. For M18s from Lieutenant Gordon Andrews' platoon occupied positions 3 kilometers north of the valley, separated from the German advance by heavily forested terrain. German planners considered tank-proof. At 0640 hours, the M18s began moving through the forest at 35 miles per hour, following a route Andrews' crews had scouted the previous day. The route included stream crossings, steep slopes, and narrow trails between trees, obstacles that would have stopped or severely delayed conventional tanks. By 0658 hours, Andrews' M18s emerged from the forest directly on the flank of the advancing German column. The Tigers, moving in single file along the road, presented perfect side shots at ranges from 400 to 600 meters. The M18s fired simultaneously, destroying the lead and trail Tigers immediately and trapping the column. Over the next 4 minutes, the remaining 6 Tigers were systematically destroyed as they attempted to traverse turrets or maneuver in the confined space. German infantry could only watch helplessly as their armor support was annihilated. The engagement demonstrated speed as a force multiplier that transcended simple battlefield mobility. The M18s had covered in 18 minutes what German tanks would have required over an hour to traverse, if they could have done so at all. This temporal advantage allowed American crews to achieve complete surprise and establish overwhelming tactical superiority before defenders could respond. German after-action reports from the Saarbrücken engagement reflected confusion and frustration. The surviving infantry commander reported, enemy tank destroyers appeared from forested terrain considered impassable for armored vehicles. Speed of approach prevented effective countermeasures. All armor support destroyed before infantry could coordinate response. Request clarification on American vehicle capabilities, as current intelligence appears inadequate. By December 26, 1944, the M18 Hellcats' impact extended far beyond destroyed German tanks. The psychological and tactical effects were cascading through German armored forces across the entire Lorraine sector, fundamentally altering how panzer commanders approached operations. Fear of encountering M18s was changing German behavior in ways that multiplied American advantages. General Major Smilo Freiherr von Luttwitz, commanding the XLVII Panzer Corps, faced an unprecedented problem documented in his December 26 situation report. German armored units were becoming reluctant to advance without extensive infantry reconnaissance to detect concealed M18 positions. This slowed operations dramatically and surrendered the initiative to American forces. Panzer commanders who had grown accustomed to operating as the dominant force on the battlefield now approached every movement with caution bordering on paralysis. The 11th Panzer Division's daily operations log for December 26 recorded multiple instances where planned attacks were delayed or cancelled due to reports, often unconfirmed, of M18s in the operational area. In one case, a planned assault by 12 Panthers was postponed for 6 hours after a reconnaissance patrol reported seeing fast-moving tracked vehicles. When the attack finally proceeded, no M18s were present. The American vehicles had long since moved to engage targets elsewhere, but the mere possibility of their presence had achieved strategic delay. Radio intercepts revealed the extent of German psychological deterioration. December 27, 09:20 hours, observed dust clouds at grid reference. Possible M18 activity. Requesting permission to withdraw to alternate positions. The American vehicles causing the dust clouds were actually supply trucks, but German crews had become conditioned to assume any rapid movement indicated M18s. This hypervigilance created phantom threats that disrupted operations as effectively as actual M18 attacks. The 704th Tank Destroyer Battalion recognized and exploited this psychological advantage. Lieutenant Colonel Krabel issued tactical guidance on December 27 encouraging aggressive patrolling specifically to create the impression of M18s being everywhere simultaneously. Small platoons of 2 or 3 M18s would rapidly traverse large areas, deliberately allowing German observation posts to spot them before disappearing. The speed of movement created uncertainty about American strength and dispositions. Major Harold Dennison, battalion intelligence officer, analyzed German radio traffic and identified an emerging pattern. German units were systematically overestimating American tank destroyer strength. Reports claimed M18s operating in numbers that exceeded the 704th's entire complement of vehicles. A German situation map captured on December 28 showed symbols indicating suspected M18 positions at 17 different locations. The 704th actually had 36 M18s total, and they were concentrated in just 5 locations. This intelligence failure compounded German tactical problems. Unable to accurately assess where M18s were actually located, German commanders had to assume they could be anywhere. This made planning coherent operations nearly impossible. Every movement, every position, every tactical decision had to account for the possibility that M18s might appear at maximum speed from unexpected directions. The breakdown of German tactical confidence manifested most clearly in engagement ranges. Pre-M18 doctrine emphasized long-range gunnery, using the Tigers' superior optics and gun to destroy targets at 1,500 to 2,000 meters. By late December, German tanks were attempting to engage suspected American positions at ranges exceeding 2,500 meters, distances where hit probability dropped dramatically even for the accurate 88mm gun. This behavioral change resulted from rational fear. German crews knew that closing to effective ranges against M18s meant exposing their vehicles to rapid flanking movements they couldn't counter. Better to attempt low-probability long-range shots than allow American tank destroyers to achieve favorable positions. But this meant German tanks were expending ammunition with minimal effect while revealing their positions to American observers who could call artillery or direct actual M18 attacks. The ammunition expenditure problem became acute by early January 1945. The 5th Panzer Army's logistics officer reported that panzer units were consuming 88mm ammunition at 3 times the planned rate while achieving historically low kill ratios. Units were firing dozens of rounds per destroyed American vehicle, a complete reversal from earlier campaigns where Tigers typically achieved kills with 1 or 2 shots. The M18's speed and agility meant most German shots missed entirely. German tactical modifications attempted to counter M18 advantages but created new vulnerabilities. Some panzer units adopted tactics of remaining completely stationary and hidden, refusing to maneuver and thereby denying M18s opportunities for flank shots. This worked temporarily but surrendered all offensive capability. Stationary tanks became vulnerable to American artillery, and they couldn't exploit tactical opportunities when they arose. Other units attempted to match M18 mobility by using lighter Panzer IV tanks instead of Tigers and Panthers. But Panzer IVs, while faster than heavy tanks, still couldn't approach M18 speeds, and their thinner armor made them vulnerable to the American 76mm gun at any range. Several engagements in late December saw Panzer IVs destroyed at ranges where their own 75mm guns couldn't penetrate M18 armor, a humiliating reversal of the normal armored engagement dynamics. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel, it means a lot to us. Now back to the story. January 3, 1945, marked the engagement that would cement the M18 Hellcats' reputation and demonstrate how completely the tactical equation had shifted. German forces launched Operation Nordwind, a major counteroffensive aimed at American positions in Alsace-Lorraine. The offensive included significant armored support. The 10th SS Panzer Division committed 28 Tiger tanks and 43 Panthers to breakthrough operations near Rimmling. The German plan assumed overwhelming armored superiority would shatter American defensive lines before reserves could respond. Intelligence estimates suggested American forces in the sector possessed primarily infantry support tanks and limited anti-tank capabilities. What German planners failed to account for was the concentration of 3 tank destroyer battalions, including the 704th, positioned to respond rapidly to any breakthrough attempt. At 0545 hours on January 3, German artillery preparation began. For 90 minutes, concentrated fire pounded American positions. At 0715 hours, the armored assault commenced with Tigers leading, followed by Panthers and supporting infantry. The initial advance achieved complete surprise, overwhelming forward American positions and penetrating 2,000 meters into defensive lines by 0800 hours. American command response demonstrated the flexibility that the M18's speed enabled. Within 20 minutes of the breakthrough being confirmed, elements from 3 tank destroyer battalions were racing toward concentration points. The 704th Tank Destroyer Battalion, positioned 15 kilometers from the breakthrough, received movement orders at 0735 hours. By 0820 hours, the 1st M18s were engaging German armor, a response time impossible for conventional armored units. The battle that developed over the next 6 hours became the largest single engagement involving M18 Hellcats during World War II. 31 M18s from multiple battalions converged on the German penetration from 3 directions, exploiting interior lines and superior speed to achieve local numerical superiority despite being outnumbered overall. The engagement demonstrated tactical principles that would influence armored doctrine for decades. Captain Raymond Foster's Company C approached from the northwest, using a series of low ridges to mask their movement until reaching positions 800 meters from the advancing German column. The Germans, focused on reducing American infantry strongpoints, detected the M18s only when Foster's vehicles crested the final ridge and opened fire. 4 Panthers died in the opening salvo before German crews could react. Lieutenant Gordon Andrews led Company B in a wide flanking movement that brought his M18s onto the German right flank at 0855 hours. The appearance of American tank destroyers from multiple directions simultaneously created chaos in German formations. Radio discipline collapsed as panzer commanders attempted to coordinate responses against threats from multiple vectors. Intercepted German communications revealed the breakdown: enemy tank destroyers northeast and northwest. Cannot establish defensive positions. Require immediate support. The M18s exploited confusion ruthlessly. Operating in pairs, they would engage German tanks from one direction, then rapidly displace before return fire arrived and re-engage from completely different positions. German crews found themselves fighting enemies that refused to remain stationary long enough to target effectively. The Tiger's powerful gun became irrelevant when gunners couldn't track targets moving at highway speeds across broken terrain. By 1000 hours, the German offensive had stalled completely. 12 Tigers and 18 Panthers burned across a 5-kilometer battlefield. The remaining German armor, rather than pressing the attack, had shifted to defensive positions attempting to protect the infantry advance. The psychological advantage had completely reversed. German tanks were reacting to American movements rather than dictating the battle's tempo. At 1,145 hours, German commanders made the decision to withdraw. The offensive that was supposed to shatter American lines had instead resulted in catastrophic armored losses without achieving breakthrough. The retreat itself became a nightmare as M18s pursued withdrawing German forces, striking from unexpected angles and destroying vehicles attempting to escape. By 1400 hours, when the last German units reached their start lines, the 10th SS Panzer Division had lost 41 tanks, 20 Tigers and 21 Panthers. American tank destroyer losses totaled 4 M18s destroyed and 3 damaged. The January 3 engagement demonstrated definitively that speed and agility could overcome armor and firepower when exploited by well-trained crews using appropriate tactics. German after-action reports acknowledged the complete failure of traditional Panzer doctrine against M18-equipped American forces. One company commander wrote, "The enemy's tank destroyers possess mobility that renders our tactical doctrine obsolete. They appear where impossible, engage from unexpected directions, and withdraw before effective countermeasures can be implemented. Recommend fundamental reassessment of armored operations doctrine." The reassessment never came. By January 1945, German industrial capacity could not produce vehicles matching M18 performance, and tactical modifications alone proved insufficient against the speed differential. The Wehrmacht faced an opponent who had solved the armored warfare equation differently and more effectively than German engineers had thought possible. The impact of M18 Hellcat operations extended far beyond the Lorraine battlefields of winter 1944-45. The tactical revolution these vehicles represented influenced military thinking, armored vehicle design, and operational doctrine for the remainder of World War II and into the Cold War era. The lessons learned between December 1944 and May 1945 fundamentally challenged assumptions about armored warfare that had dominated military thought since 1940. Final statistics from European operations documented the M18's remarkable combat record. Tank destroyer battalions equipped with M18 Hellcats claimed destruction of over 500 German armored vehicles, Tigers, Panthers, and lighter tanks, between December 1944 and Germany's surrender in May 1945. Loss rates averaged approximately 1 M18 destroyed for every 7 German tanks eliminated. This represented the most favorable exchange ratio achieved by any American armored vehicle during the European campaign. The 704th Tank Destroyer Battalion alone, which had pioneered many of the tactics other units adopted, recorded destruction of 107 German armored vehicles with loss of 12 M18s during combat operations from December 1944 through war's end. These figures, verified through unit records and German documentation captured after surrender, demonstrated that speed and agility could indeed substitute for armor protection when exploited through appropriate tactics. Post-war interrogations of German armored commanders provided insights into the psychological impact M18s had created. General Oberst Heinz Guderian, in testimony to American military intelligence officers in July 1945, acknowledged, "The American M18 tank destroyer represented a conceptual approach to armored warfare that German doctrine had not adequately addressed. Our emphasis on armor protection and firepower, while sound in principle, proved insufficient against opponents who could consistently achieve tactical advantage through superior mobility. We underestimated the value of speed as a defensive characteristic." SS Brigadefuhrer Fritz Kramer, who commanded panzer units that faced M18s during the Ardennes fighting, was more blunt in his assessment. "The M18 destroyed the psychological confidence our crews had developed through 3 years of armored superiority." Crews who had grown accustomed to their Tigers being invulnerable found themselves being outmaneuvered and destroyed by vehicles they had considered inferior. This psychological defeat preceded and enabled the physical defeat. The United States Army's official after-action analysis, completed in October 1945, identified the M18 program as one of the most successful armored vehicle developments of the war. The analysis noted that while the M18 had initially been designed for a specific doctrinal role, rapid concentration against armored breakthroughs, its actual employment had proven far more versatile. The speed and firepower combination made M18s effective in reconnaissance, exploitation, pursuit, and defensive operations beyond their intended purpose. Military vehicle designers studied M18 characteristics extensively in post-war years. The emphasis on mobility, while not entirely new, gained renewed appreciation. Cold War-era armored vehicle development increasingly prioritized speed and agility alongside traditional armor and firepower. The Soviet PT-76 amphibious light tank, American M551 Sheridan, and numerous other designs reflected lessons learned from M18 operations about the tactical value of superior mobility. The tank destroyer concept itself, however, fell out of favor in post-war years. The United States Army eliminated tank destroyer battalions as separate organizations, incorporating their lessons into combined arms doctrine while distributing their equipment to other units. The M18 remained in American service through the Korean War, where its speed again proved valuable in the fluid mobile warfare that characterized much of that conflict. Final American M18s were retired in the mid-1950s, though some remained in foreign service for decades afterward. The veterans who had crewed M18s during World War II maintained a fierce pride in their vehicles and their accomplishments. Annual reunions of tank destroyer associations, held from the late 1940s through the early 2000s, celebrated the David versus Goliath narrative of lightweight, fast American vehicles defeating Germany's heavy armor. These gatherings preserved oral histories and personal accounts that enriched official documentation of M18 operations. Corporal James Hartwick, the gunner who had achieved one of the first M18 kills of a Tiger tank in December 1944, spoke at the 50th anniversary reunion in 1995. "We knew our armor wouldn't stop an 88mm round. We knew we couldn't survive trading shots with Tigers. So we didn't try. We used our speed to get where they couldn't see us, took our shot, and got out before they could respond. The M18 gave us the tools to fight smart instead of tough. That made all the difference." The M18 Hellcat story demonstrates a fundamental military truth that remains relevant across generations and technologies. Tactical problems rarely have single solutions, and unconventional approaches can overcome seemingly insurmountable advantages. The German focus on armor and firepower was not wrong, but it was incomplete. The American willingness to sacrifice protection for mobility, when combined with appropriate tactics and industrial capacity to sustain losses, proved decisive. Today, preserved M18 Hellcats occupy places of honor in military museums across the United States and Europe. The vehicles, with their distinctive low profiles and sleek lines, represent a moment when American ingenuity and industrial power combined to solve tactical problems in ways opponents hadn't anticipated. The thin armor that made them vulnerable also made them fast. The speed that German intelligence dismissed as irrelevant became the characteristic that decided battles. The winter battlefields of Lorraine, where M18s first demonstrated their capabilities against Germany's best armored forces, are now peaceful farmland. The scorch marks from burning Tigers have long since faded. But the lessons remain, preserved in military doctrine, veterans' memories, and the historical record of how 8 tons of armor difference became meaningless when one side could move at 55 miles per hour and the other couldn't. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.